I always thought silence was supposed to feel peaceful. But as I stood in the floor-to-ceiling window of my penthouse office, watching the early morning haze crawl over Manhattan, the quiet felt almost heavy. The kind that presses against your ribcage and whispers memories you'd rather forget. The silk of my navy blouse brushed against my wrist as I lifted my coffee cup, the same wrist that once had N4 taped to it. The same hand that woke up in a cold hospital room, reaching for a family that was already boarding a plane to Florida. I was 20 then. I'm 27 now. And I've learned how to replace the ache with ambition. My phone buzzed against the marble desk, a soft vibration, but somehow it sliced right through the quiet. I glanced at the screen, expecting another work message, another contract, another problem to solve. But it wasn't business. It was a text from my younger brother, Ethan. Ava, we're back. We're at the house. It's completely empty. Call me. My fingers froze midair. A strange, ironic smile tugged at my lips, the kind that comes when the universe finally circles back, asking you if you're ready to answer. Of course the house was empty. I left it that way on purpose. The memories inside it didn't belong to me anymore. I set my coffee down, brushed a loose strand of hair behind my ear, and inhaled deeply. The past had finally knocked on my door. And this time, I wasn't the one lying in a hospital bed waiting for someone to choose me. People think the worst part of being abandoned is the moment you realize you're alone. They're wrong. The worst part is realizing they planned it. I remember the hospital lights first, too bright, too cold, buzzing faintly like they were judging me for being there. I had passed out 2 nights before from a severe fever and dehydration after working double shifts at the diner. My family knew I'd been sick for days. They knew I hadn't been eating well. They knew I didn't have insurance yet. But vacations don't reschedule themselves. When I opened my eyes, my throat felt raw, and my hands shook as I reached for the call button. A nurse rushed over, adjusting the blanket around me. "Your parents stepped out, honey," she said gently. She didn't know that stepped out meant they were already halfway to Miami. Hours later, when my fever finally broke, the truth came from the only person who bothered to show up, Mrs. Langford, our elderly neighbor. She walked in with her signature floral scarf and a grocery bag full of homemade soup. "They left yesterday morning," she whispered, squeezing my fingers. "They didn't want to miss the trip." My chest tightened so hard I thought the monitors would scream. I don't remember crying. I only remember the silence and the shame. Mrs. Langford handed me a small object, a silver pendant shaped like a tiny compass. "It belonged to my late husband," she said. "Whenever he was lost, he'd hold this and remind himself that direction matters more than speed. Keep it. God knows you need someone on your side." The pendant was warm from her palm, warmer than anything my family had given me in years. When I was discharged 2 days later, the Morgan house felt unfamiliar. Suitcases were gone. Closet half empty. A note on the fridge. "Ava, you're old enough to take care of yourself. We'll only be gone a week. Don't make this dramatic."
Mom.
Dramatic.
Right.
My hands trembled so badly, I dropped the note twice. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with the compass pendant between my fingers and made myself a quiet promise. I would never give anyone the power to leave me stranded again. The next morning, before sunrise, I packed a single duffel bag, just clothes, my worn-out sneakers, and the pendant hanging around my neck. I slipped out of the house, locked the door behind me, and walked to the bus station without looking back once. It wasn't courage.
Not yet.
It was survival. But survival has a funny way of turning into strength when no one's watching. The bus ride out of my hometown smelled like old leather seats and burnt coffee, but to me, it smelled like freedom. I held the compass pendant in my fist the entire way, its edges pressing into my skin, a reminder that I wasn't running away, I was choosing a direction. I arrived in Philadelphia with $82, a backpack, and a determination that felt heavier than both. I rented a tiny room above a laundromat where the walls were so thin I could hear every dryer cycle like a heartbeat in the dark. At night, when my anxiety curled up beside me like an unwelcome shadow, I would clutch the pendant and whisper, "Keep going, Ava. Just keep going." My first job was at a deli, then at a bookstore, then at both, because one job wasn't enough. I spent my breaks reading business articles on abandoned magazines customers left behind, stories about startups, branding, and women who built empires out of nothing. I wasn't sure what my future looked like, but I knew I wanted to build something that couldn't be taken from me. Everything changed the day Lydia Harper walked into the bookstore. She was the kind of woman who turned heads without trying. Silver hair and a sleek bob, tailored charcoal coat, the presence of someone who'd already conquered her battles. She noticed me studying a shelf of marketing books while organizing new arrivals. "You actually read these," she said, not as a question but an observation. "Yes, ma'am," I answered shyly.
Good, she smiled.
Passion beats pedigree. I didn't know it then, but Lydia was the founder of a boutique branding firm, small but rising fast. She gave me her card. "Call me when you're ready to do more than survive." I stared at the card for hours that night, tracing the embossed letters with my thumb. Survival was all I knew, but maybe, just maybe, I was ready for more. I called her the very next morning. Lydia hired me as an assistant, entry-level, chaotic hours, no promises. But she saw me.
Really saw me.
She noticed every late night, every idea scribbled in the margins of my notebook, every time I stayed after hours to learn Photoshop, copywriting, and market analysis on an old secondhand laptop. When I doubted myself, Lydia didn't sugarcoat anything. "Growth is uncomfortable, Ava.
Get used to it."
I worked harder, fell down, got back up, worked harder again. There were nights I cried silently on the subway ride home, my vision blurry, my makeup smudged, my feet aching. But then I'd feel the pendant warm against my chest, and something inside me would whisper, direction over speed. Slowly, the wins came. My first successful logo pitch. My first solo client. My first commission check that felt unreal in my hands. And then the moment Lydia placed a folder on my desk and said, "You're not an assistant anymore. You're a strategist." I wanted to scream, cry, laugh, all at once. Instead, I just nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. As years passed, my name started circulating quietly in the marketing world. Clients trusted me. Companies sought me out. People praised my instincts, my voice, my vision. But my family? They knew none of it. I kept my social media simple. Never posted my office. Never showed my wardrobe. Never bragged about my wins. If they had abandoned the old Ava, then the new Ava would stay hidden.
For now.
Ethan's text kept replaying in my mind like a song stuck on repeat. "We're back. We're at the house. It's completely empty." I had prepared for this moment for years, quietly, deliberately, but I still needed a second to steady my breath. My reflection in the glass wall beside me looked nothing like the girl they had left in that hospital bed. My posture was straighter, my eyes sharper, my voice steadier. I called Ethan back. He answered on the first ring. "Ava, where are you? Mom is freaking out." I smiled softly. "I'm in my office. Bring them here." They didn't know what office meant now. The last time they saw me, I was bussing tables at a diner. The elevator ride to the lobby felt like the slow climb of a roller coaster, that quiet tension right before the drop. I walked through the glass doors of Morgan and Harper Branding. Yes, Morgan, the name Lydia insisted we use once she made me her partner. And today, every inch of this place felt electric. High ceilings, warm, modern lighting, abstract art adorning the walls, pieces I bought with my own hard-earned money. Polished oak floors reflecting the morning sun. My team glanced at me with knowing looks. The rumor had already spread. Ava's family is coming. I stood at the railing of the mezzanine, fingers brushing the compass pendant resting just below my collarbone. Lydia's voice echoed in my head. "One day, they'll realize who you became without them, and they'll have to live with it." The elevator dinged. I lifted my chin. Out stepped Ethan first, shoulders tense. Behind him, my mother clutching her purse like the world was ending, and my father scanning the lobby with a mixture of confusion and suspicion. "Ava," my mother breathed, her voice trembling. "Why is the house empty? Where have you been living?" What? What is this place? This, I said, gesturing around us, is my company. Their eyes widened. My father blinked rapidly, like he was trying to solve an equation that didn't make sense anymore. We rode the elevator up in thick silence. My mother kept glancing at me, as if I might disappear again. The doors opened directly into the executive floor, my floor, where my office stood at the far end, wrapped in glass and morning light. They stepped inside slowly, taking everything in. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline, the sleek desk with brass accents, the awards displayed on minimalist shelves, the framed client campaigns, and the soft cream rug that looked untouched. My mother ran her hand across one of the chairs. "This is yours. All of it." My father's jaw tightened. "Since when?" "Since I worked my way up from nothing," I said calmly. "Since I stopped waiting for people who never came." Ethan swallowed hard. "Ava, why didn't you tell us?" I paced slightly, letting them sit with the weight of the silence, the way I once sat alone in that hospital room. "When you left me," I said, choosing each word with care, "I learned not to expect anything. Not support. Not love. Not even basic decency. So, I built a life that didn't need any of it." My mother's voice cracked. "We didn't know it would hurt you that much." I let out a soft, humorless laugh. "You left your sick daughter alone in a hospital bed so you wouldn't miss a vacation." She flinched as if the memory slapped her. I stepped behind my desk and finally delivered the truth, the one that shifted the entire room. "I'm not just an employee here. I'm co-founder, co-owner. Half of this company is mine. I run a multi-million-dollar portfolio. My name is on the building's lease. And the house you came back to—" I paused, looking directly at my father. "That house is no longer your responsibility. I bought it. I emptied it. I moved out." They stared at me, stunned, ashamed, speechless. For the first time in years, I was the one who chose silence. And for once it was powerful. For a long moment, nobody spoke. My parents sat across from me on the soft cream chairs, looking impossibly small in a room built from my ambition. Ethan stood near the window, hands in his pockets, guilt written across his face like a confession he didn't know how to say. I folded my hands on the desk, steady, calm, collected, the opposite of the girl they left behind. "Why are you telling us this now?" my father finally asked, voice rough. "Because," I said gently, "you finally asked where I was. For 7 years, no one asked." My mother's eyes reddened. "We made mistakes. We thought you were strong enough." "No," I cut in softly. "You thought I was small enough that leaving wouldn't matter." Silence again. A necessary one. I stood up and walked around the desk, leaning against the edge, so I could look at them eye to eye. Not as their daughter begging for love, but as a woman offering truth. "You're here now," I said, "and I'm willing to have you in my life. But only under my terms." Their heads snapped up. My mother blinked. My father stiffened.
Good.
For once, they were listening. "Condition 1, I said, holding up a finger. "You acknowledge what happened. You don't excuse it. You don't sugarcoat it. You name it. You left me alone in a hospital. And it was wrong." My mother broke into quiet tears. I know," she whispered. "And I'm sorry. I can't undo it, but I'll never pretend it was anything other than cruelty. We failed you, Ava." Something in my chest loosened just a little. I nodded.
Good.
"That's a start." Condition 2. No guilt tripping. No controlling. No dismissing my accomplishments or my boundaries. If I say no, it means no. If I need space, I take it. My father exhaled, eyes tired. "We didn't realize how much we pushed you, or how much we expected you to adjust to us. We won't do that again." Condition 3. "Ethan," I said, turning toward him, "this one is for you." He swallowed hard, bracing himself. "You stop living in their shadow. You apply to that architecture program you've been too scared to try for. And you promise me you won't let anyone tell you who you can or can't be, including them." His eyes widened. You knew about that?" "Of course I did," I smiled softly. You're my brother. I pay attention, even when no one else does. His voice cracked. I'll do it. I promise. I took a slow breath, then delivered the hardest condition of all. Condition 4. If you want to be in my life, you come as the people you are becoming, not the people you were. I won't heal backwards. I won't shrink to fit your comfort. You either grow with me or you don't come along at all. The weight of that truth settled in the room like a shifting tide, heavy, real, irrevocable. My mother reached for my hand, hesitant, as if approaching a fragile creature. Ava, we want to do better. We'll learn. We'll change. We'll earn our place in your life. If you'll let us. For the first time, her words felt real, not rehearsed, not defensive, real. I nodded slowly, letting a soft breath escape. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for effort. My father lowered his gaze. You'll have it. And just like that, the balance that once crushed me shifted entirely, resting, finally, in my hands. Change didn't happen overnight. But over the next few weeks, I saw it, slowly, awkwardly, honestly. My mother started therapy. She didn't announce it with a dramatic speech. She simply mentioned it in passing one afternoon, her voice soft, almost shy. My father apologized without being defensive for the first time in my life. Small sentences, but real ones. And Ethan sent me screenshots of his architecture school application, asking for feedback, his eyes bright with a hope I hadn't seen since we were kids. It wasn't perfect, but it was movement. Forward, not backward. One evening, after a long day at the firm, I stepped into my penthouse, the home I built brick by brick, hour by exhausting hour. The city lights sparkled through the windows like scattered diamonds. I kicked off my heels, noticing the tiny chip in my nail polish and laughing softly. Even strong women forget to redo their nails sometimes. I walked to my bedroom, opened the drawer of my nightstand, and took out the compass pendant. The silver was worn now, edges softer, metal warm from memory rather than touch. I held it gently, brushing my thumb over its face the way I did at 19, 20, 21. All those nights when the world felt too big and I felt too small. Mrs. Langford's voice echoed in my mind. Direction matters more than speed. Back then, I thought she meant survival. Now I understood she meant becoming. Becoming someone who didn't break. Becoming someone who built. Becoming someone who forgave, without forgetting. Someone who loved herself enough to choose her own path, and strong enough to let others walk beside her only if they earned the right. I stepped onto the balcony, the cool night air brushing my face, carrying the faint scent of rain. The city hummed beneath me, alive, relentless, full of possibility. My phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. Got accepted.
Thank you for pushing me.
I won't waste this chance. I smiled. Not the tight, guarded smile I used to wear, but something warm, unburdened. I slipped the compass pendant around my neck, letting it rest against my heartbeat. Not because I needed guidance anymore, but because it reminded me of where my journey began. Of the girl who survived the hospital bed. Of the woman who built an empire from the ashes of abandonment. Of the daughter who demanded change and received it. I looked out at the skyline, feeling something settle deep inside me, like the click of a lock finally turning the right way. My family left me alone in the hospital for a vacation. I whispered to myself, a soft, steady voiceover in the night. But they returned to a woman who would never be left behind again.